I think that's enough. Okay, so we are live. I think there's enough that it should be investigated. I'm looking forward to watching it again while being able to be like when you're first watching it the first time, right? You're trying to be critical, right? And you're trying to think of questions to ask and stuff like that. But it's easier to do the second time watching it. And the truth is, this is my second time watching it. I'm watching it with you. It's your first time. And later tonight, I'll be watching it a third time with another friend who hasn't seen it. So I think the more I get to watch it, um, yeah, it'll be. And then one of the criticisms Shapiro had was like, why isn't there more video footage? And that would be nice, but it just doesn't exist. And then one of the criticisms from, quote unquote, the fact checkers, like Politico and stuff like that, that are more so on the left, I would say, is that this cell phone data isn't good enough to get you that good of information, except the CDC used the exact same type of cell phone data to see if people were staying 6 feet apart. So obviously, if they can get it to within 6 feet, it's pretty darn accurate. So,
and Roberts from the Supreme Court says that it's as clear as you can be as far as being accurate on where a person was at a certain time and place. And I mean, that's the Supreme Court.
So Politico, when they do that, I mean, I think it's their job to fact check and things like that, but that's not a fair criticism. So, well, it's an hour and a half, not an hour 45, so we'll watch it. If you, unfortunately, there are no subtitles, so I'll just try and get it to a volume that you like. Hopefully, the loudness won't get us shut down off of YouTube because we're not technically rebroadcasting this. We are providing commentary, but we'll see what happens. And then if at any point you want to stop and chat, I probably won't stop and chat because I'll be tempted to do it way too much because I've seen it already. But if there's anything you want to stop and chat and clarify, just let me know.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics.
Is that loud enough? Like, it just seems fishy right away. Doesn't it seem a little bit fishy right away? And then taking pictures?
Oh, they make it look fishy.
Yeah.
Is it real? Who is the guy representing?
Yeah.
Is it a fake? Like,
is it a fake? Are they all fakes? Yeah. Are they all just lies created by Dinesh D'Souza? That would be quite the whopper.
It would.
Yeah, but who knows? Shit, that's a good question.
Every time we vote, we're standing up side by side with the founding fathers, with the men of Valley Forge, with patriots and pioneers throughout our history, with all those who dedicated their lives to making this a nation of the people, by the people, and for the people.
Elections are the lifeblood of our democracy. They are the mechanism by which the American people choose who is going to rule on their behalf and for their interests and welfare. Without elections, there would be no way for the American people, for us, to exercise our legitimate sway on the future direction of this country.
Polls now closed in half the country, and we're getting some interesting results coming in from those battleground states.
If you're a Republican, you say, wow. If you're a Democrat, you say, uh-oh. You see, Donald Trump is now starting to widen his lead. President Trump now with 64% of the vote.
The president right now has the lead in the Keystone State.
We're gonna have a great night, and we're gonna have much more appointments. We're gonna have a great 4 years.
The 2020 election haunts the American mind.
Here's where it gets really bizarre. Fulton County, most populous county, it is Atlanta. They just stopped counting. Yeah, I mean, while the stop counting goes,
They all stopped counting for the night. All right, welcome back. This is CNN's special live coverage, 10:31 a.m. on the East Coast. Why am I giving you the time? Well, if you managed to sleep last night, things change. You may have gone to bed thinking this election was headed one way, and then you woke up and you saw things were different. Also overnight, Joe Biden pulled ahead in the state of Georgia.
Joe Biden takes the lead in Pennsylvania. Okay, we have an announcement to make.
Joe Biden is running for president 3 times, and the 3rd time has turned out to be the charm.
One side insists it was the most secure election in U.S. history.
Let me begin with one immutable fact. The 2020 election was the most secure election in American history.
It was the cleanest election, the safest election, the most secure election ever run.
Make no mistake, there has been no evidence of any significant widespread voter fraud.
Let me say it again.
The 2020 election was the most secure
Election in American history.
This same side accuses anyone who disagrees with them of perpetrating a big lie for the big illusion.
The big lie keeps getting repeated.
The big lie is just that, a big lie.
And despite a relentless media barrage, the other side remains convinced there was widespread election fraud.
What I saw was not a secure and transparent election.
Poll claim that Travis County Clerk's office is lying them out. Last night there was a major software glitch that actually delayed the counting of all of the ballots.
So look at election fraud, and I want to look at secretaries of state who illegally changed the voter laws without the permission of their state legislature.
There have been numerous attempts to prove election fraud.
The man dropping off ballots in the early morning hours of November 4th, 8 hours past the deadline.
Their mother was in a nursing home and did not have the mental capacity to vote. We obtained video time that showed a man dropping several ballots into a Dropbox.
Scottsdale pleads guilty to casting a ballot in his dad's mother's name.
It shows a man buying a registration form for an absentee ballot from a voter, giving him, quote, pocket money, unquote, of $200.
Yet courts have refused to consider these cases on their merits.
The Supreme Court rejecting an effort by Republicans to reverse President-elect Joe Biden's lead in Pennsylvania.
The Supreme Court has rejected the Texas-led effort to toss out election results in 4 key states.
And some Republicans dismiss the idea of systematic fraud and call for us to move on.
Fraud did not play a role in the outcome of the election.
The election was fair as we've seen. We simply did not win the election as Republicans
What?
presidents.
You only got like a yes one.
Yeah, it's okay.
On the 6th, reject the
And
lies about the election, and make clear that a president who engaged.
So you saw my sesame oil before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in a tin like that. Probably.
Other issues arise out of the 2020 election. Did the January 6th protesters go to D.C. to mount an insurrection? wasn't an insurrection, it was a primal scream.
Yeah, there's like lots of video that's nasty, but there are some video, and it's not gonna be in here where like police are escorting them in. So it's weird, but we've talked about that enough.
This morning, President Trump was without his favorite megaphone.
You will never again see a tweet from President Trump.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Is it a lie at all? Hey, I'm Dinesh D'Souza, and this is season 1, episode 1 of my new podcast. I started my podcast in early 2021 to speak the truth. But by simply asking questions about election fraud, you get booted from YouTube and Facebook. My podcast is sponsored by Salem Media, and I knew that other Salem hosts felt my frustration. Larry Elder, Dennis Prager, Eric Metaxas, Sebastian Gorka, Charlie Kirk. Let me begin by asking a very simple question. Do we feel confident or comfortable that we know the truth about what really happened in the 2020 election?
I'm agnostic on this question, and I am awaiting more information.
What about you, Eric?
I think Katherine, the coward.
I think, honestly, it's almost funny to me that you're agnostic. I think most Americans know that we don't know what happened and are not okay with that, by the way.
I'm supposed to believe that a man who didn't campaign or campaigned on his base maybe got more votes than the first black president of America. I don't believe it.
Charlie, we have crumbs, there's some evidence here and there, but the picture is far from complete. Larry Mules, you were asked straight out, right? Do you believe that the 2020 election was stolen? What was your answer, and do you abide by that answer as of right now?
My answer was that Donald Trump is in Mar-a-Lago and Joe Biden is in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. The lawsuits did not succeed. But do I believe there was shenanigans? Do I believe there were irregularities? Absolutely. He said so. This is probably the most low presidential I've ever seen. I thought Richard Nixon was low. I thought George W. Bush was low because of the Iraq War. I've never seen the level of vitriol against this man every single day. I think there was a study that found 91% of the news of ABC, NBC, CBS, Nightly News against Donald Trump was negative.
I do with the question.
Followed by a voted 2.5-year collusion investigation. And then on the eve of the election, this Hunter Biden story dropped to show that Joe Biden clearly lied about his lack of knowledge.
I think it's getting somewhere.
And even the CEO of
I think he's getting somewhere.
He shouldn't have been. That alone would have altered the election. You add all that up, my point is, this man is so low, I wouldn't put it past the Democrats to do virtually anything to make sure he doesn't get into the polling.
Yeah.
I believe the president were Nazi. I like the election.
If we were Germans in the 1930s, we'd steal the election from Hitler if we could.
If I'm that indoctrinated, of course I can justify it.
It was James Fonda who said that COVID was God's gift to the left, right? It wrecks the empirical positives of the Trump economy. Here's the other. It enables a whole bunch of things on the other side to change the rules of the election. So the point is, in a COVID environment, is it not conceivable that Trump could have lost fair and square?
I think millions of Americans know something went wrong, and they have little pieces. No one's really put it together. They know that there was injustice. They know it in their gut. They know it through the Delaware counties where Donald Trump won almost every single one of the predicted counties that show who's going to be president. And then they also know it where they went to bed thinking Trump was going to have 4 more years, and they woke up with the exact opposite.
We have an individual who could fill a stadium with 60,000 supporters in 24 hours. That's an individual, the famous photograph of the 6 empty circles at a Bible map. We have an incumbent president who received more votes than any other incumbent president in American history.
8 million short of the winner.
10 million more votes
Yeah.
than he did
He
4
did
years
talk the
prior,
truth.
and to receive more support after 4 years.
Well, he just said the exact same thing you did. He's not lying.
This was being called a racist and a white supremacist, more support from the Hispanic and black community than any Republican president since the 1960s. And he was beaten by a machine politician who couldn't speak clearly, who on the campaign stage would confuse his sister with his wife. It just
Is it possible that the
Okay, I said I wasn't going to pause it, but the fact that there were so many more votes, like this was like a record number of votes, right? And that's, partially, the left will say partially because of its vitriol against Trump. It's partially because, mail-in balloting was expanded. To me, the fact that there was such a huge jump in votes is a statistical anomaly. Like some of the things that came out right after the election were like the odds of like the way things went, where Trump was leading at bedtime and then morning was voting time. Like the odds of that actually happening were like statistically very rare and things like that. Now, in and of itself, that's not proof, but I think that's just something interesting to know and to remember, at least when kind of watching all this and considering what happened.
very successive
What do you say?
Republicans down ballot? I'm talking about Republicans running for the House, running for the Senate, running for other races. The fact that the Republicans as a party did pretty well, but Trump lost. Doesn't that work the other way and undercut the idea that there was systematic fraud?
it's an anomaly, because if he really, when a president really loses, if he has tails, what is it called? Tails. And the down ballot lose, but they won. Why didn't they cheat on all of those? Why did they cheat in Virginia with Youngkin?
And who's to say they didn't cheat? Not all attempts at cheating succeed.
You're right. One other question. In the Republican Party, I
Yep.
hearing people.
I think
Because I think that was an unfair question too. So I want to hear what you say.
well, I think it's a good point when your party members win and you don't.
Yeah.
But I think what's really
Again, it's just an anomaly, like you said, right?
Yeah, I'm not interested in someone using anomaly as an argument, but what bothers me is we talk about the two parties as if only one would cheat, and that would be the Democrats. In this group,
Right.
only the Democrats would cheat.
Right.
Are we kidding ourselves that we don't
No.
think the Republicans would cheat as well?
I think
And did they? Well, we don't know whether they
We
did
don't know.
any more than we do the Democrats.
Exactly.
Did. And they're talking as if it's only the Democrats that can cheat. Well, a lot of things they did check into,
Yeah.
which were minor,
and they'll
turned out to
they'll
be
talk
mostly Republicans.
Yeah.
And
they'll talk
Yeah.
about Republican cheating and stuff like that.
good.
Yeah.
Great to listen to the whole thing, but
No, it's okay.
like I don't.
It's
trust
okay to.
either party.
I think it's okay. Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think they asked or they said something about like, okay, so Trump lost, but Republicans won. But even after 4 years of Trump, there were still never Trumpers or people who were Republicans that didn't like Trump. So while it is an anomaly, right? It is something worth, again, I think, considering. So is the fact that so many Republicans are anti-Trump. And I think that's why, like, part of the reason why there wasn't a lot of support from the Republican Party to look into what happened, because they didn't really care if Trump got voted out.
Well, they had 60 or 70 losses. That's pretty significant.
Yeah.
I don't know how that.
Yeah, but that
compares
all
to
came
other-
from Texas, right? So it didn't come it didn't come widespread from the government or from the Republican Party.
Like the Gore Bush one, I don't know how many challenges they had in court, but 60 or 70, I can't remember which one it was, but that's
It was
lot
a
of,
bunch.
that's a lot of ones to
Yeah.
lose consistently.
Yeah.
And if they had the kind of information that the 2,000 mules suggest,
Well, they didn't.
have,
They didn't have that. That's the thing. This is very new information.
yeah, well, they do have it now. So
Yeah.
let's get going. Like let's take the information.
I agree.
Revisiting of the 2020 election. There actually appears to be let bygones be bygones. Let's just move on.
I think the reason that many Republicans are saying let's move on is because bold accusations require bold evidence, and they haven't seen it.
And because they know how vulnerable they are and how much they're going to be tracked.
You're called a sore loser. You're called a conspiracy theorist. But who would say that? Let's move forward. People in the elite who see Donald Trump as an anomaly.
You will not win in any district in this country because you have said that the 2020 election was a fraud. And if they can't win on this issue, then don't use it.
Well, it doesn't have to be the only issue, but their unwillingness even to speak up about it, I think, is despicable.
Show me the proof that you speak up, just like I will speak more, and I'm not running for office. But I have not gone on board on it. I know for a fact this was a fraud.
Show me the money.
So Prager seems to be the one guy who's still like, I don't believe much could have happened.
I would identify with him more.
Yeah, agnostic, right? Show me the proof.
Well, I think we've got 60 or 70 things that say no, so that's
Yeah.
enough proof. If they come up with something else, I'd listen.
Yeah. Well, the 60 or 70 things saying no so far. I mean, new evidence does come up in trials and stuff. So I wouldn't say it's not possible, but it's just not happened yet. So
Hi, I'm Katherine Engelbrecht, founder and president of Free to Vote. Hey, Dinesh, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine. Hey, listen, I'm here with Debbie.
Hey, Katherine.
Hey, Dinesh.
You know how crazy it is out there. You guys been digging into this whole issue of voter fraud?
Well, we have been working on something big. It's probably best we don't discuss it over the phone, but can you? Well, I've been working with Greg Phillips. I don't know if I've ever introduced him to you, but he has a deep background in election intelligence. He's worked projects all over the world with a massive 30-year experience. We decided to test a hypothesis, and we went really big. And now that's something that we think you're going to really want to see. So I'll send you the rest of it.
Now, Greg Phillips, what's your background that prepares you for this kind of work?
I've been in and around election intelligence and integrity for about 40 years. We've done investigations literally all over the world. It's a combination of data acquisition, data analysis, occasionally some in-depth data mining. Our ability to draw meaningful conclusions that link the who to the when to the where is significant in this space.
Katherine, you started the group called True the Vote in the year 2010. What was your mission or objective?
We just didn't have enough volunteers working at the polls in our local elections. So we began by training people to work in the polls, and then as we got further into it, we recognized, wow, some of the problems we see at the polls can be attributed to problems in the voter rolls. Well, what can we do about voter rolls? And so it turned into something much bigger than we had anticipated.
True the Vote has the largest store of election intelligence for the 2020 elections in the world. No one has more data than we do.
So I started True the Vote to ensure that every American voter has an opportunity to participate in elections.
I think I became familiar with your work when you gave congressional testimony. That was in the year 2014. In fact, I met you through Debbie, and I think what's interesting is that you not only have known Debbie for years, but you trained her. And
Absolutely. I was a bilingual coal launcher. Oh yes. So my Spanish language came in very handy. I was a poll watcher in Rosenberg, and the poll judge was telling this couple that came in Spanish who to vote for. And of course, she didn't really realize I knew Spanish, and so there we go.
You busted
I busted.
Yeah. So, Katherine, when you set up Who to Vote, you set it up not so much, it's not a partisan organization. Is that because you saw shenanigans, problems with voting as coming out of both parties?
Oh, absolutely. Plus, we need parity of parties at the polls.
Well, you told me about this remarkable election in which you had vote harvesting and vote trafficking, but it was on behalf of a Republican candidate.
Exactly. In North Carolina, it was unique in that it actually overturned an election.
There was a new election in the North Carolina congressional district involving a scandal of a voting fraud.
It's all centered around allegations that an operative for Harris then hired a team of people to harvest absentee ballots, paying them between $2 and $3 a vote.
So you have an activist, the guy's name was McCrae Dallas, and he worked for the Bladen Improvement Association, which was a kind of an African-American that to the polls, but apparently they were doing all kinds of vote harvesting, and he learned the strategy, and he broke with them. And he took his services to Mark Harris, the Republican pastor who was running, and Harris won. He pulled it off.
A pastor, of course. Oh, shameful.
People out banging on doors, gathering ballots. Sometimes the ballots are sent here, gathered here, deposited there. But the trafficking itself is always the same basic pattern. There's a nonprofit involved somewhere in the middle. There are people that are either collecting those ballots on the one hand or depositing those ballots on the other and getting paid for it.
In no case is it acceptable to be paid for your ballot or to accept some form of remuneration for your ballot. In no way,
What's that?
Is that
Yeah.
I noticed, Katherine, that in the immediate
You read the instructions, right? Yeah, I don't talk and spread it a little bit, you know? Yeah, thank you.
I got the impression that you were looking for a different approach.
given the outliers that were introduced in such a major way in 2020, namely the privately funded Dropboxes, the mass mail out of ballots, the hypothesis was if you were going to cheat, how might one go about this? That would be provable, trackable, traceable.
You said there might be some, let's just call them bad actors, who are deliberate.
That comes up later. She mentioned privately funded Dropboxes, which I thought was interesting. So, and that comes up later. So,
What is a privately funded Dropbox?
it just means like somebody paid for that Dropbox, and
it wasn't a real one. It wasn't one.
it is a real one.
Oh, okay.
For sure. But okay, so they'll talk about it later. But Mark Zuckerberg bought like tens of thousands of Dropboxes. It's pretty interesting.
How do you even buy a Dropbox? I don't get that.
They explain no. Well, they're government owned, but they're part of a. They explain it more, but Zuckerberg put tons of money into providing more Dropboxes, which is that just seems weird,
It does.
right? And it would seem weird if Zuckerberg did it. It would seem weird if Elon Musk did it. It would seem weird if Mother Teresa did it. I wouldn't trust it. So, yeah, it's just something that comes up again
But it's
later.
open to everybody to do that.
Yeah, to use. Yeah, for sure.
Bring ballots systematically and illicitly to these mail-in Dropboxes, and there might be a way to track them and to bust them.
We didn't know. We decided to bring out the data, tell the tale, and we collected together a team of highly skilled contractors and put together a plan to see where the data would take us.
What, Greg, is geo tracking?
So the idea is to collect these signals that are emitted from your phone. Your cell phone is delivering information to apps that are collecting that things that are 4 key coordinates: the lat long, the elevation, and the time. And with that data, we can then build a pattern of life around you. So that's what I'm here right now. Well, where's it going to be at 5 o'clock? And where's it going to be tonight?
So here's my cell phone. My cell phone is off. Can I be geo tracked even with the cell phone being off?
Possibly.
Depending on the apps.
Depending on the apps, depending
That's
on
what
what's
marketing companies do all day, every day.
This is the point. We were just at the Apple store and CVS, and on both occasions,
So the geo tracking thing I've actually experienced because I have an app on my watch that is supposed to indicate when I fall. It doesn't do that. But if I press it 3 times, it sends a message to my wife to say that I'm in trouble. Like I've fallen or I fainted and just recovered, or I think I'm getting ready to faint, or because it has
I need some sort of help.
I need some sort of help. And so I discovered that once I press it 3 times and she gets a message, she can actually talk to me through my watch to see how I'm doing. If she doesn't hear anything, or she doesn't call 911. But the interesting thing was, I didn't know I had to turn off that particular message. And then throughout the day, she kept getting texts that says, "Oh, now he's at the grocery store. Oh, now he's at the swim pool. Oh, now he's at this address with one of my sons." So it was tracking me the whole time, and then it would send her the information.
Yeah.
And I thought, holy smokes, this is crazy. Someone can just follow me.
Yeah, and there are apps now that like you go to the grocery store or a place of business, and it's like you'll get a notification for a sale that they have going on there and stuff like that. That's what they mean by private business, and advertisers use it.
So this went on all through the night.
And
I mean, this is overstating things, but every time I roll over in bed, she got a text.
Where you were evidently,
Absolutely.
they were telling you about specials, and they were, so people have experience of this.
There's 300,000 or so apps that gather that data, and then they sell it to brokers.
Is it also true that this geo-tracking has now become a vital tool for the military, for intelligence agencies, and for law enforcement?
Indeed, they're using it almost every day. I'll say that there's no question amongst anyone in the community that many, if not all, of the people that were involved in the situation of Chapter 36 were being tracked previous to January 6th because they already knew what their penalty was. They already knew who to look at.
Many of the people who stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th.
This happened in Ottawa too, at the trucker protest.
They must have known about these people before, because some of those guys were arrested 1 day, 3 days, 5 days after January 6th, and that's not enough time to do the geo-tracking analysis.
The very idea that you could go from the afternoon of January 6th to acquiring the data, tracking the data, unmask who actually owns that phone, which the government is required to do, and then get it to a grand jury, make an arrest in 72 hours. Impossible. It's not possible. They should have been tracking the people in advance. But the fact of the matter is, these techniques are used every single day by law enforcement, the intelligence community, the Department of Defense.
Was geo-tracking part of the way that the CIA was able to identify Bin Laden?
It certainly played a role. It's even more sophisticated today than it was when Bin Laden was disposed of. More and more apps are participating in this program, if you will.
The reliability of geo-tracking is not substantially different from the reliability of a fingerprint or the reliability of DNA. If it identifies your phone, I'll give it my phone to Debbie, but the simple truth of it is my phone was there on this particular date, and there's absolutely no question about that, right? Now, you decided to purchase through these brokers that make this information available to companies and make it available all kinds of places to buy data. Let's talk about the methodology. You identified data in certain places, and by and large, you focused on the states where the election was decided. Tell us, what are the areas that you bought data for, and what were you looking for? What's the time period?
October 1st through the election. In Georgia, we actually bought from October 1st through January 6th after the runoff. So we went in, we decided to do the Atlanta metro area because it picks up some rural areas, it picks up some urban areas, it picks up some suburban areas, 309 drop boxes in the area. And we thought, okay, well, this is a pretty good test. We, in essence, sort of fenced around those.
You could take 300 million drop boxes.
No, 309.
Make purchase the data of people that had been near those drop boxes, but also near the organization. Across the country, we bought 10 trillion signals.
When they give you this data that you then have to go through, what does this data look like?
It's massive data transfer. We have more than a petabyte of data. You're talking about transacting hundreds of terabytes, so it's a significant amount of data.
You have 10 trillion signals, that's a lot of signals. So what was the criterion that you set?
The final decision was they had to have been to 10 or more drop boxes, meaning unique visits inside of a space, and 5 or more visits to one or more of these organizations.
Those are the outliers. It was such an aberrant pattern.
So what you're saying, and it seems to me there's no reason for someone to go to even 2 drop boxes. But you're saying that maybe there's a conceivable reason someone did that. Let's identify a large number of drop boxes and multiple trips, and that way we're going to catch not all the offenders, right, but the worst offenders.
What we would describe it as we want to absolutely ensure that we don't have false positives, meaning including people that should not have been included. We're not in any way saying that this is all it is. We're just saying that based on our criteria, that we identified in Atlanta 242 people that went to an average of 24 drop boxes in 8 organizations during a 2-week period.
242 mules. Now let's pause for a second. What is a mule?
When we started the project, we had to figure out how we wanted to describe the individuals and the elements involved. And to us, it felt a lot like a cartel. It felt a lot like trafficking. It can be trafficking in drugs, trafficking in humans. In this instance, it's ballot trafficking. So we began to use that vernacular. A mule is, by our definition, a person that is involved in picking up ballots from locations and running them to the drop boxes. So you have the collectors on the one hand, you have the stash houses, which are the nonprofits, and then you have the mules that are doing the drops.
What do we know about them? Who are they?
So yeah, I wonder if that scene there, which was the scene at the beginning, if that's a reenactment.
I think it looked like a reenactment.
It does look like a reenactment, and
I looked at it.
and you know what? You're right. I saw it that time. It looks too perfect, right?
Yeah.
Like
And the camera's
that's not a security camera. That's a person. That would be either a person watching, or it's a reenactment. And if it's a reenactment, they got to say it, and they shouldn't do it because it takes away from the legitimacy of the other footage. Now, it could be somebody else watching because they do have a bit of footage in this documentary of other people gathering footage, but I don't know. Not a lot.
Anything that's a reenactment should be stated.
Yeah, it should.
Otherwise, it looks like they have someone cold doing it.
Right.
They still don't know what the ballot says.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
But they did come from liberal places.
Yeah.
So we
Did you
have.
find any that came from conservative places?
So I don't.
It's okay. We'll find
I don't. Yeah.
Grandma out walking her dog. Bad background, sad reputation. We've had, cameras.
Yeah, that's a reenactment for sure.
Violent guys.
Can be. They are interested in one thing. That's money.
Do you know, by the way, how much they get paid?
According to the people that have shared information with us, it's generally $10 a ballot. In the Georgia runoff, that number was higher.
2020, of course, was the year of the Antifa riots, the BLM riots, and it was all going on in the months and weeks leading up to the election. And so in the data, you have Geo Tracking data of the Dropboxes, but you also have data on the rioters.
There were several different violent BLM Antifa riots in Atlanta. In one of them, we had 3 dozen of our mules participate in these violent riots. There's an organization that tracks the device IDs across all violent protests around the world. We took a look at our 242 mules in Atlanta, and sure enough, dozens and dozens and dozens of our mules show up on the ACLID database. So again, this is not grandma walking her dog. These are violent criminals sometimes.
There's not just a criminal element, but there's an ideological element. And there's an overlap between people. I mean, you're not going to go to an Antifa riot and find it overpopulated with patriots or Christians or Republicans. These are people on generally the far left. And turns out that these are people who also help to make up the mule population.
I think that's also borne out in our target organizations themselves. They're not like Republican organizations.
Either left-wing Democratic organizations. Yeah. Let's zoom in here. So the mule is the delivery.
So that was interesting. The target organizations were left wing. Does that mean they targeted left wing organizations, or they targeted organizations and they were left wing? They're not clear enough about that.
It turned out to be left wing.
Yeah, they're not clear enough about that for sure.
Yeah, there's so many ways to state this that has nuance to it.
Yeah.
That covers their rear end, but
Yeah.
generally says what they want to say.
Exactly.
And what they're saying is they have a starting point or multiple starting points, and then they have the end point. And the end point is the Dropbox, right? So you're saying that they get the ballots from somewhere, and then they go deposit them in multiple Dropboxes.
One of the questions that will come up in the work that we've done is, well, how do you know that this wasn't just somebody that's got a big family and they just deposited the ballots once? Or how do you know that this person didn't just work at a location that is near Dropboxes, so they're constantly going by Dropboxes? The elements that are additive here, you go into the nonprofits, the ability to identify the pattern of approach to a Dropbox, and that it is going not past a Dropbox and on, but directly to a Dropbox and back to another point and then to another Dropbox. All of these things.
I mean, isn't the timing significant? Some guy's going to a Dropbox at 2 a.m. in the morning, presumably he's not like out for a walk.
And we're going to show you a visual, a pattern of life that someone can see and look at, rather than just a whole spreadsheet of numbers, being able to look at it in this manner. What you see here on the screen is a single person on a single day in Atlanta, Georgia. They went to 28 Dropboxes and 5 organizations in one day.
Isn't that that's a detail of every
Tell us what
where?
the organizations are. Like they're saying something about them.
Yeah.
I want to know their names. So
Yeah. So, but look at that.
Yeah.
Look at the detail. That's the level of detail that
Crazy.
Jane was getting on your updates, right?
Totally crazy.
Like, no privacy.
Not at all.
What are the orange dots?
Those are Dropboxes.
And what is the blue tracks?
Those are smoothed out of the line so that we could take the sort of the movement of the individual cell phone signals, marry them together into something that's visual so that you can see movement on the individual. To get to some of these Dropboxes, you had to be intentional. You had to get off the highway, you had to go on surface streets and turn in somewhere in order to get to those Dropboxes.
And the circles, I take it, reflect the nonprofit centers, and that's the places where the ballots originate.
The stash house, where the
Did
ballots
they know
are
that?
collected and handed.
What do you mean?
To
Did they know that
Now let's move.
they had proof that they got the ballots from there?
No, they don't have proof that they got the ballots there, but where else are you getting 400 ballots from?
Yeah.
So, but what I want to know is, are they all Democratic ones, right?
Yeah.
Maybe these guys who are harvesting ballots for $10 a pop, they're not ideological.
No.
They just want to make a few bucks.
Yeah, they'll do it for liberal pay them.
Yeah,
And
that might be the
important
case.
to publish the names of those places that they call
Yeah.
nonprofits, so that we can all look at them and say, well,
Yeah.
that's not, or that is,
Right.
or make an assessment on it, or ask a question like, who
Well,
decided
and
these guys are?
And that's why I think when they get this information, they're going to have people's names. They should go talk to them because
Yeah.
they're probably guilty of committing a crime. Because you're not allowed to drop off other people's ballots unless and you're not allowed to get paid. So why are you doing it? Right. So we should go talk to the people who did it, promise them immunity, but give me information.
Common sense says, I think, that route was done by one person.
Yeah, it was one person.
And it was for one side. He wasn't going back and forth. I'll do a couple of Republican or a couple of Democrat. He was either one side or the other. And that's
probably, but if you're going to say, let's just say 5 different organizations, maybe 2 are Democrat and 3 are Republican, and you're just going and you're picking up ballots and you don't care, and then you just drop them off.
Yeah, that's why the names of the organizations are important.
It's important for sure.
Yeah, he needs to publish it. If he's not afraid of...
So he talks about one, I know he talks about 1 or 2 at some point, but let's keep watching to see if they talk more about it, because that's really important, I think. We have to know they're leftist organizations.
Over to Arizona. And how many mules in Arizona? A little over 200 in Phoenix alone. The reason I think this is all very significant is because these were very close states, right? What was the margin in Georgia?
10 or 11,000, I think.
Under 11,000, yeah.
Arizona also extremely close.
Yeah, very close.
Then you
I recounted like 5 times.
Yeah.
The initial look was in Milwaukee. Gross numbers were a little down, but the average number of visits to the Dropboxes was up. So instead of having only 24 unique visits, I think they averaged 28.
I mean, maybe I've heard people in Milwaukee are really hard working. Maybe they just went overtime. I mean, that's what it is.
We have more than 500 meals that we've identified in this. Again, the number of boxes is lower.
So regarding Michigan, they said there's 500 mules. What's interesting about Michigan is like Crowder really investigated Michigan quite a bit, to the best that he could with his, and there's, and this is small scale. This is like a dozen votes. We're talking about dozen, but literally he got information about like, addresses on ballots, and then he went to the addresses where these people supposedly lived, and the addresses don't exist. They're like empty lots and stuff like that. So very small scale, obviously, what he can investigate, but it seems to me that Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, especially, those 3 states are like kind of bellwether states, right? If the Republican wins those, they usually win the election. If the Democrat wins those, they usually win the election. So I think it makes sense to have focused on these 3 states in particular.
Yeah. Okay.
Detroit mainly, but we have people in Detroit that have more than 100 Dropboxes.
Wow. And this is stunning because it's like, I cannot think of a rational, kind of innocent reason for someone to do that. It just doesn't exist. So any reasonable person would say, let's get on to something big.
We should take a closer look.
Let's go to Pennsylvania, a critical state. I think it was Pennsylvania that really gave Biden the election.
Philadelphia alone, we've identified more than 1,100 mules at rates well beyond anything we've seen. Closer to 50 Dropboxes
Each side under 50 Dropboxes.
each. 1,100. So people driving back and forth in New Jersey across the bridge.
You're saying the ballots may not even be from Philadelphia or from Pennsylvania. But you're saying that the origin point appears to be Jersey. running 1,100 meals times 50, we're doing 50,000 Dropbox visits by the MULES of Philadelphia or greater Philadelphia area. Now, as you were assessing this data, you had two of you, and I'm not sure which of you came up with this genius idea in my view, or to validate your data.
We chose to look at 2 murders that were acting on cold case status.
And in Atlanta, 8-year-old Victoria Turner was killed by rounds of gunfire shot into a car that happened just outside this Wendy's parking lot.
Brought the data and the team got to work.
You could see visually that there were only a handful of unique devices that could possibly have pulled the trigger. So this is the area, and this is where the wind was.
And are you saying that each green dot is the same guy,
Yeah.
but moving through time?
Each color. The shooting actually occurred right here in this parking lot, sort of inside of this circle. Really the only potentially legitimate shooter. Each of these devices has a unique device ID, and we turned the bulk of this information over to the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Now, I read, they've arrested 2 suspects.
They have.
2 suspected gang members will appear in court this morning on charges for the shooting death of 8-year-old Victoria Turner.
Isn't it true that this tracking, these movements, this parallels exactly the work we're doing with the mules?
Exactly.
It's one thing to have the scientific evidence, which is persuasive on its own merits, but do you have video evidence?
We do.
How much of it do you have?
4 million minutes of surveillance video around the country.
Official surveillance video of these mail-in Dropboxes.
Yeah.
How do you get it?
You can file for open records request. Any citizen can do this. It was a very difficult series of steps that had to be followed to procure the actual surveillance video.
Your video in Georgia?
I did.
Is it video from the presidential election, the runoff election, or both? Do you have video from other states?
Some video from Arizona. We have recently learned video was specifically turned off on particular Dropboxes.
In which state?
Arizona. Wisconsin, it turns out, even though the rules required them to have video,
Did they do the video?
they did not.
There should be video on every Dropbox. Given today's kind of cost of technology, it would not have been that hard to do it. And you sent me a screenshot, Katherine, where you were requesting video. And I believe it was the state of Georgia saying this video does not exist and we can't tell you why it doesn't exist.
Right, that was in Fulton County. And we have correspondence like that from a lot of states. In the absence of it, that geospatial data is key to decoding, what the greater scheme was. But in the case of what we're going to show you now, what kicks it up a notch is that we have the geospatial data to support the video.
Let's talk about some of the videos. So we're going to show you a couple different ones. This particular individual we have in a number of different locations at a number of different times. He's actually a mule.
This is
Careful.
Surveillance video.
You can't do the microwave and toaster oven.
As the person pulls out, they're in front of parking. It's the middle of the night, so why would they? He gets out, approaches the box.
Yes, sir.
When people walk up with intention to walk around, they basically walk fairly quickly. They try to get out of there. In this case, he drops it on the ground. Pick them up, stuff them in the box. And he hustles back and hustles out of there. So this is what it looks like. It doesn't necessarily look like hundreds of ballots being stuffed in.
You don't need a whole lot of time, just need to load in the right places over time.
Is there a way to estimate or even roughly how many ballots are being tossed into a box at a time?
It might be 3 or 5 or 6 or 10 or something like that.
The idea is to stay under the radar. And that's the numbers, 3, 5, 10 ballots. But then they're not done for the day either. They're going place to place to place, day upon day upon day. And so that will not show up in your chain of custody documents, your tracking documents. That would identify a big blip.
I mean, they're not going up and dumping in, buckets full of ballots. On the other hand, we've seen circumstances where it appears that buckets full of ballots showed up. There's one box in Gwinnett County that had a chain of custody document with 1,962 ballots noted on it. So first of all, there's roughly 10 times worth of numeracy. We sorted through the data, found a few hundred people. Okay, that's pretty odd. We have video of all of this. And guess what it said? 271 people approached that ballot drop box during that 25-hour period. 271. 1,962 ballots were deposited. Wow.
Here are election officials pulling out of that drop box 2 full.
So I think at this point, we've pretty much seen that there are mules. They are going to multiple drop boxes multiple times and dropping off multiple ballots. Does that seem to be reasonable? Yeah. Okay, cool. And that's not enough to declare like who cheated, but we think someone's cheated at this point. Would you say that? Do you think someone's cheated at this point, or do you think that somehow these organizations could have collected that many legal ballots and just had paid someone to drop them off?
Yeah, well, if they're legal, just put them all in one box. You wouldn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Moving around is a little suspicious. This is what happens every time I see something like this that seems so convincing. I would like to hear someone just as skilled as this guy and this woman on a computer react to what they're showing and ask the good questions that I can't ask.
Mm-hmm.
And
I find the guy who works for the competing organization. So this guy sounds like he's worked in intelligence and across countries for years. Let's say he worked for, Bob's international election, whatever, assessment. Yeah. Find a guy from Joe's international election assessment and see if Joe agrees with this guy here.
It doesn't appear they're going to reveal the organizations.
They do a little bit, but I don't remember a lot. They do a little bit, but
until they release all of them,
they
can't be selective here. They all
have to be
evaluated and assessed properly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if this amount of cheating went on, then it proves that Democrats are smarter cheaters.
Yeah, for sure.
Because a lot of Republicans got caught individually for doing it. And
so if this amount of cheating is going on, period, I think we both feel this is cheating. We just don't know who it's for 100%.
Well,
all the claims of fairest and securest election, those go out the window. And I think if you're an American citizen of any political leading, you want this stopped. You want this stopped. You don't care. I wouldn't even care if it was 50-50 and they nullified each other. You want it stopped, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I don't care who gets exposed.
Yeah.
Like if either side is exposed or both sides, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like if you're exposed, you're exposed. You're responsible. You're guilty.
If it turns out, say they do an investigation and it turns out, yes, these are all illegal ballots, and 70% of them are Republican. I still want people arrested, and I want election laws changed, right? Even though I'm the guy who prefers Trump over Biden. It doesn't mean I'm a Trump lover. I just prefer Trump over Biden because I think Biden really stinks.
And I'm of the position I prefer anybody over Trump. So,
There you go.
it just happened to be Biden.
Even if it is somebody as lousy as Biden.
Yeah, well, I'm not prepared to say that. But
No, I know. I'm jokingly putting words in your mouth.
Duffel bags containing over 1,900 ballots.
Let's look at another one. Let's take a look at,
The interesting thing about this person is the device seems to live in South Carolina. So this person is from Georgia. She was here during both election cycles, but is not a resident of the state.
but as she approaches the Dropbox, she never looks at the trash bin, right? She's looking the other way. But the other thing she has is she has gloves on. What one of our analysts noticed was these surgical gloves only appeared from December 23rd forward in the winter. So we didn't see a lot of them previous to December 23rd. We couldn't figure out why. And then
COVID?
Well, on December 22nd,
Oh.
there was an indictment handed down in Arizona for people that had stuffed ballots, and the way the FBI nailed them was fingerprints. And then lo and behold, the next day and days forward.
So this video is not from the Georgia analysis. This is January of 21.
This particular one is at approximately 1 o'clock in the morning on January the 5th.
There's the ballots in there with a small statue, and 3 takes it off, and then puts it in the trash can that she never looked at.
I don't know why he said never looked at.
What's that got to do with that?
It just means she's been there before, I guess, which we're not surprised by. I think that's all it means.
It goes to dozens and dozens of people.
Who's next?
What you're going to see is he approaches the Dropbox on his bike. He also has a backpack on. Pull the ballots out of his backpack. Taking his time, digging around, looking for some ballots. Finally gets that, pulls them out, okay, now I'm set, and he'll put them in. But you also see him get sort of frustrated as he starts to leave, because guess what? At this point, they started requiring the mules, apparently, to take pictures of the stuffing of the ballots. It appears that that's how they get paid. So they take a picture, stuff it in, they take a picture, not a selfie, but a picture of the actual ballot.
And all those pictures, there has to be a digital trail of that too. So who are those pictures being sent to, right? That's important.
Going in. But this guy gets frustrated, so he actually has to park his bike, get off.
So if you were there just casting your own ballot, what reason in the world would you have to come back and take a picture of the box?
And he goes down.
Look around.
Takes a picture. Okay, the next one. Yeah, so let me show you dog guy. So the dog guy, middle of the day, this is actually a polling place. So the people in line are waiting to go in and vote early. They're doing it the right way. They're not anxious. Other people can walk up.
There's a quiet statement.
This next guy,
They're doing it the right way.
he's watching the whole thing.
I mean,
Ballot boxes should be used
well, ballot boxes shouldn't be used
this way.
in the manner that they're using
I
them.
think he's
the cat of the
yeah.
bag there. Yeah, I think he's anti-ballot box altogether.
Got the ballots under his arm already. Now he's got eventually pulled it at the back.
Doing it right in front of people.
Yeah. It's pretty audacious.
Guy's right behind him.
Yeah, and he's taking pictures.
People that are doing it the right way.
It's difficult for them to know what to do, except observe and maybe say, what's going on? What did I just see?
They wonder.
And then some lady drops off $1.
It's happening in broad daylight and nobody's doing anything to stop it.
So these are the kind of things, 4 million minutes of this. This was an organized effort to subvert.
Or what's it, 4 billion minutes of that?
You can't
No.
look at this data in its aggregate.
It's just 4 million footage of voting, of footage, sorry.
Especially true when you consider that
Because you know what they actually don't have, which would have been really good, but they have the geo tracking. So that guy right there, stuffing the ballot into that box, they don't have video footage of him at another box. They only have geo tracking, because again, most of these boxes didn't have cameras.
And that was Shapiro's complaint about
Yeah.
it, but Susan just said, yeah, but we have this code moving from
Yeah,
box to box
exactly.
to box. So in a sense, we have this DNA
Yeah.
moving from box to box to box.
Which I'd agree with.
Only one has a camera.
Yeah. So I'd agree with D'Souza there that just because you don't have his face at every location, like just because, say, a murderer killed 12 guys in a city, right? Only one house had home surveillance, but you had the murderer's DNA at 12 different homes. He's going to prison for 12 murders.
Yeah, that's what D'Souza's argument was.
Yeah.
in places like Georgia, it was decided by 10,000, 12,000 votes. And you look at 5,000 visits just from our mules, it's not too late to say, yes, it would have made a difference.
Adding these numbers up, we have 2,000 plus mules based upon not searching these whole states. Now, remember, we're only talking about a small number of states. We're not talking about the whole country.
No, we're talking about whole states.
We're not even talking about the whole states. And we're also talking about a gross undercount of the actual number of mules because you set a high bar. They have to go to 10 Dropboxes. So if there's a mule that went to 7 Dropboxes, you wouldn't catch that guy.
And they had to go to nonprofits. So they had to meet those two criteria and then go to one of the geofenced Dropboxes. If they met the two criteria, but went to a post office box,
one of the slogans of the Democrats through all this debate has been make every vote count. And I think we can now see in a certain way that this is kind of what they mean. What they mean is it doesn't matter if all kinds of illegal ballots are being dropped in.
That's totally unfair. That is not what they meant.
No.
That's total bullshit.
Yeah, that's definitely the bias and probably, I mean, it's all right. But, I mean, you got to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, every single documentary comes from a point of view. So I don't think it gets, hopefully, I think it makes sense not to get upset. We just can take from it the facts that we learn, right? And so far, I think, I think I'm with you actually so far that I think there's widespread cheating. We don't know it was just Democrats. I want to keep watching to see if it nails it home or not.
Well, you've watched it. You think it does. That's okay. You don't have to say it.
Well, I watched it once. They don't focus on that as much as because really they've been focusing on the mules, right? That's what it's called. It's called 2,000 Mules. We're 45 minutes into this. It's mostly about the mules. It's still half of the remainder is probably going to be still about the mules, and then it'll be some other stuff, some commentary, a couple other little whistleblower type stuff. But for me, it's focused on the mules. They do talk a little bit about who done it, right? The Democrats, but it's not enough to prove that it was all Democrats.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think so, but I gotta watch again.
It's so silly to say it was a clean election because every vote counts. And under the drug, they say, yeah, because we stuffed the ballot box.
Yeah.
That's not what they're saying.
No.
A lot of them wouldn't even know about that.
Exactly.
Pay no mind to the millions of Americans who think this is not right. This does not make sense. Nothing to see here. Smile and wave, boys.
I mean, wouldn't it be a good summary to say that these voter bills the Democrats are desperate to enact, to federalize the election, isn't it that they need to take all these special provisions that have enabled what we've described, or you've described in the 2020
This is speculation.
make it permanent.
If we don't wake up and do the hard, roll up your sleeves work that it's going to take to reel this all back together, then yes, all the pieces are in place for our election system to be in permanent lockdown. And it will be done under the watchful eye of a media that will tell you it's all just fine.
It seems like
5 more minutes.
supporting democracy and the publicly funded it.
Absolutely. And it won't stop unless we stop it.
If I look across the swath of Republicans, this is not the kind of issue that they seem to be comfortable with. It's almost like they would rather endure.
That's right. Well, it's a gamble, right? You know,
Speculation again,
currently,
not evidence.
and you watch these brazen acts, and nobody says a word because they're scared that they're going to be sued, because they're scared that they're going to be canceled, because they're scared that they're going to be silenced. That is exactly what they want.
And as I said, on the other side of fear is freedom. You never get past the fear, you're never free.
That's somewhat what we know.
They may have data, but they're clearly biased.
Oh yeah, for sure.
This was not.
And that was all.
Coal mine.
Yeah, but that was all speculation, right? That these are all Democrats and the Republicans don't even want to talk about it.
Systematic fraud in all the key states where the election was decided.
Yes.
And therefore, does it follow that the people who suspected fraud, even though they didn't have the proof, their suspicion was right?
Absolutely. Their instincts are right.
And moreover, that the states that are trying to do something about systematic fraud by restoring a modicum of, let's call it the old rules. Checking your voter ID, checking signatures. You want a mail-in ballot? You know what? You got to request an absentee ballot. We're not going to send 20 million ballots out there and see what comes back. But these voter integrity laws, following voter suppression, are actually a legitimate way to make sure that the people who vote are actually eligible to vote.
100% accurate.
I'm okay with them being requested. Like, I
Yep.
think that's a legitimate thing to ask for.
I have to request my ballot, right? In the election coming up in June. I have to request mine.
Got close on it. We should go retrieve those close. Every prints on the inside.
Yeah, but they were taken a long time ago to the
Yeah.
landfill. And otherwise, yeah, if they had it the day after, it'd be great.
Look at this guy.
Yeah.
Fraudulent votes in two
He
of
doesn't-
the five
He's doing it right in front of people.
Yeah.
Does he feel they're fraudulent?
ballot to be delivered by a family member or a caregiver. This is both
Probably.
but it's not the same as ballot trafficking. In no state in America is it legal for nonprofit organizations to collect ballots and pay mules to deliver them to mail-in Dropboxes.
No, but you're in some states, you're allowed to drop off ballots for friends and family, right? So if you're asked, what are you doing? Well, I got 13 people in my extended family. We all got together on Sunday and voted, and now I'm dropping them off. That's all you got to say if somebody asks, right?
Now we come to the most important question of all. Was the magnitude of vote trafficking in these
No, the most important question is,
to tip the balance
are they all Democratic votes
presidential election? Let's first nail
or Republican?
just our 2,000 votes. Their average number of Dropbox visits, their average number of illegal ballots deposited per visit, 5. That's 380,000
How do you know
illegal
that?
votes. But was this sufficient to put Biden?
Remember they said they had 217 people drop off votes, and there was 19. Yeah, that's how I think they're getting that number.
In the White House? To answer that question, we must look at each key state. In Michigan, 500 votes, averaging 50 Dropbox visits and 5 illegal ballots per drop.
That's 125,000 illegally trafficked votes, not quite 154,000 vote difference between Trump and Biden. So Michigan, with its 16 electoral votes, stays in the Biden column. In Wisconsin, 100 mules, averaging 28 Dropbox visits and 5 illegal ballots per drop. That's 14,000 illegally trafficked votes, 6,000 votes short to get Trump to win. So using only our mules, Wisconsin's 10 electoral votes stays in the Biden camp. But now we come to Georgia, 250 mules, averaging 24 Dropbox.
This flips for sure.
Ballots per drop.
Because it was only
You
10,500.
don't need 11,000 something.
Yeah.
12,000 vote difference between Trump and Biden. So Georgia, with 60 electoral votes, moves forward into the top. In Arizona, the numbers are roughly the same. 200 mules, averaging 20 Dropbox visits and 5 illegal ballots per drop. That's 20,000 illegal votes. Again, these illegal votes are substantially more than the 10,000 vote margin that gave the state 11 electoral votes to Biden. In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania alone, 1,100 mules, averaging 50 Dropbox visits and 5 ballots per
Yeah.
That's 275,000 illegal votes, again comfortably exceeding the 80,000 vote margin between Trump and Biden. So Pennsylvania's 28 votes goes for Trump. So I mean, even this narrow way of looking at just our 2,000 mules in these swing states gives Trump the win with 279 electoral votes to Biden's 259. But no one thinks that our 2,000 mules were the only mules trafficking illegal votes. To widen the search, Greg and his team lowered the criterion from 10 or more to 5 or more Dropboxes. This revealed a huge upsurge in the number of mules from 2,000 to 54,000. 54,000 mules. Next, they used a very conservative estimate of just 3 ballots per Dropbox visit. Now, when we multiply this increased number,
If this is one party and you have 50,000 mules dropping off, this is as right at the beginning of the movie, they had that slip of the tongue or whatever where, we put together the biggest voter fraud, but he meant to say voter fraud, like fighting thing, right? But literally, if this is all one party, you have 50,000 mules across it. This is like organized crime on such an unbelievable level. Yeah, I don't know, right?
It is unbelievable. And
Yeah.
if they were recruiting questionable people, they were feeding crime in their own state.
Yeah.
Single votes per drop, we find election fraud on an astonishing scale. In Wisconsin, 83,565 illegal votes were trafficked. In Georgia, 32,670. In Pennsylvania, 209,505. In Michigan,
What's that?
226,590.
Whatever says on the box.
And open I
Calculus
started
won all the key states. And the final electoral vote.
On what?
406. 406. So like I don't know how much time you can take.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? Even an hour is not too long. So I would even go an hour. Yeah.
So and I took out the
Sounds good.
so I'll just be outside job.
Yeah, for sure.
Make that call.
Yeah, by all means, brother. Hey, people at home, that's my attendant, Suba, helping me out. He's awesome.
Did not anticipate that anyone would go through this video.
So this is 1 o'clock in the morning.
Don't we all vote at 1 o'clock in the morning? Right. This seems silly, but somebody has to go, how do we know this is not normal mail? This is a ballot
Dropbox.
Right.
Okay, this is not the mailbox where you write to mom.
Oh, that's the same one.
Yeah. Well, because you could drop off ballots at the mailbox as well. So that's why they did focus just on ballot boxes, not mailboxes.
So this is not the first time she's done it.
That one was in Georgia, is that right?
Yes.
So in Georgia, it's illegal to turn in anyone. but
They were
yourself
showing
or
a
your
runoff
family
and stuff
members.
too.
Yeah.
It's illegal. So forget the outcome.
So in Georgia, it's illegal to drop off anyone votes but your own. So you can't even bring your wife's vote to the ballot box.
That's an illegal practice what you just saw. Video number 2. I just saw that. Taking pictures.
Why would you do that? What do you suspect if you had actually caught this person at that moment in the old ballots and the person did, what do you think you would see? Whose name is on in your opinion?
I think Prager's asking good questions.
Legitimate ballots.
There's an ambiguity in what you're saying. The ballot itself is legitimate.
No, that
Right, it's not a real piece of paper.
Yeah, okay.
But again, remember, when you mail in a ballot, you have a security
Let
envelope
him
with the
finish.
signature verification
Yeah.
standard that's there all the watch delay. And as soon as it's taken out of that envelope, then you have a disconnect, and the
It's a
ballot is
very
right.
good sheet of paper.
The ballot's
The only
right.
ID is on the envelope on the outside.
But this is an example of multiple ballots.
Not on the ballot?
7 a.m.
I'm voting for.
No, because it's got to be private.
Comes out, and what you're gonna see is, when you try to put too many ballots.
Is that the epitome of laziness or what? Trying to shove 12 ballots in at once instead of just going one at a time?
Is, to say the least, suggestive. Who voting at 3:57 a.m. with all these ballots?
And then being able to match that, you standing there, to the next place you go. So that's the way you want.
Right.
But each one of these, you know, went to,
On average,
you have
23
the
times.
same guy going different places.
Yes, right, this is their pattern of life, so in one night, this person, this mule, went across 6 counties with 27 different drop boxes, 5 different organizations, in one.
Name the organizations.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Because I had no idea this was going on during the election.
Trump did his trying to tweet out in July. Mail-in ballots are a disaster. And he was attacked so hard by Kemp and Ducey.
But that was, he had some information, obviously.
Interesting.
Yeah, this is the tip of the iceberg. You're talking about extraordinary criminal activity, but there's a ton more, you would guess, not even.
You are talking about 200,000-300,000 ballots that were just harvested in only the York geolocation locations. But you are talking, what, 5% of America? Well, less than 5%. Okay. So the case closed. Sorry, gentlemen, maybe. Case closed. All right, so I do a heroic thing that's not necessarily others here do. I read the New York Times and it's my martyrdom. They claim all of these places we have found maybe 4, maybe 50 phony ballots.
It's not phony ballots. This is a very novel.
They're phony names. No,
There's no name on the ballot.
Okay, let's say we got access to.
Well, those brownies smell good, eh? Right? You smell those brownies?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, they smell good, eh?
Because the evidence has no connection to the person who was meant to be voting. As soon as it gets taken out of the envelope, the identity of the voter disappears. The vote from John Doe is from a John Doe who is dead or a John Doe who is moved. Is that correct? Or voted somewhere else. Or voted so why is that not provable?
There's an easy way to find it, but it's not the way you think. It's not to go find the ballots in the ballot mix. You can't do that. The way to find it is these guys have the cell phone identification of all of them. So law enforcement has come in at this point, and their next step
What were you doing?
is to go and interview the mules. Who paid you?
That's what I agree.
Money,
I mean, any state's law enforcement do that?
This is a big question. The neighbors aren't gonna fess up. They know they're participating in something that is.
You got them on videotape. You got 2,000 people who are committing felonies.
I think you need to reflect about what you've learned today and how you're feeling and thinking about it. It's just sickening to me. It's jaw-dropping.
What you showed is frightening.
And that's all true. It's jaw-dropping. It's frightening. Is it all Democrats?
Investigative journalist Heather Mullins interviews a whistleblower hired by the National Republican Senatorial Committee.
I was hired by the NRSC. My job is basically to watch the ballot boxes. And this was for in Georgia. So that started on 7/14.
So this might be his. This might be his footage, yeah, which we thought might be a reenactment, but I'm not sure. It looks too good still.
And then I'm starting to see things like backpacks and really large numbers of ballots.
If this is this guy's footage, which they're not saying it is or it isn't, this footage looks so good. It's like it looks way better than the surveillance. Now those surveillance cameras are government purchased cameras for like $200 or $300 a piece. This guy could easily have a $1,200, $1,500 camera that does look good, but it also looks so properly lit and everything. So I don't know if this is, yeah. So 2 questions I have. Who are the organizations? How do we know they're all Democrats? And this video footage, what is it?
Some of that, we took pictures of it, and then dates and times. I spotted a place from Texas, Colorado, South Carolina, North Carolina. There's odd that all these states were coming in, and these people get on that watch and then go up the ballot, stuff the ballot. But that's kind of odd. So we took pictures of those things, we took pictures before we license plates and these things. And then I uploaded those photographs to a Dropbox. Then when it came to the Georgia runoff, the actual day of the election, I was up there in the early morning. Now there were Stacey Abrams people all along the sidewalk up there.
How did you know that they were Stacey Abrams people?
Well, they had those masks on that said vote. I'm sure that's one of those things they had just before COVID, right? And they were part of that initiative. I knew that she was part of that initiative, that she had one about get out the vote kind of thing. So the party was those people that were, they're all here acting with each other. And then the local Democratic Party chairman was there also about 6:30 that evening. We noticed there was a couple. These 2 ladies had run off and they had a big stack of ballots. And we were standing there and they tried to shove the ballots in there. Look at her, take the pictures, and the other gentleman took a video and everything. And she turned around and looked at us and she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, we're taking a picture." And she said, "Well, you can't do that." And I said, "Yes, I can." And she got mad. And she ran up the sidewalk and went out.
So you're saying the NRSC was.
So even if these people are cheating for Stacey Abrams, right? A Democrat. Again, that's very anecdotal, right? That's just one person that this guy, quote unquote, caught. It's still not enough to know it's all Democrat.
I mean, it's hard for me to believe that a strategy this effective was just adopted by one side.
Right.
What you witnessed during your time working, do you believe that that was enough for a law to get involved?
Several weeks, no contact or anything,
Yeah, so you're saying though, if somebody had contacted you, you would be willing to testify to these things and give those depositions under oath?
That would have happened.
She didn't ask if you had to. She was asking if you were willing.
cooperating support.
Oh, wow, okay. Okay, awesome. I'll do it.
Right. So this is one informant for one leftist organization in Arizona.
So one of 54,000 mules.
No, one of like she was not a mule. She's
Organizer of the mule.
yeah, she was one of the 5 houses they went to pick up. And, I think she muled a bit too. I think it's a she. I can't remember. It's all voice distortion and stuff like that again. But again, it's anecdotal. It's not opening a window to see, oh, we looked at, we could only get 100 names of organizations and 72 were this party, right? It's one thing, one party, right? Too small.
Thanks so much. Okay. Hey, honey.
Yeah.
Take a look at this. So this
This is so fake.
was going to interview that mule. That's a video. It's a concealing her identity.
What was your job? What were you doing? So at some point, you were sort of instructed, I guess, to start receiving people's ballots.
Leading question.
Instructed to forward take ballots from various people, females mostly. And on Friday, they were told to pick up. And I assumed it was payment for what they were doing.
So during the week, they would bring them in at various times, and then you would pay them an hour on Friday. Is that kind of how it went?
And then I would get a call to pay out how many hours or bribe. And if they went over pre-filled out first. And she would look it up and put it up. And then before she left, she would either take them herself, but other times she would ask me to drop them off at the library.
So what was the instruction?
Just to drop them off.
In the drop
I was going to drop off at the early ballots.
Can you give me an idea of how many you personally put in the box? Hundreds?
A little bit, yes.
And was there a reason she wanted you to go to that drop box as opposed to a city hall?
There's no condoms. There's no condoms there. And she would want me to take it and leave and I was done also.
And this is widespread in Yuba County or elsewhere.
I would say that.
So do you think that people even know in San Luis, they believe that they're right?
I don't even think they know the meaning of what that is.
Do you personally?
So we clearly have a democratic, organization, a person who's admitting that they're cheating to the tune of maybe hundreds of votes aren't going to change the election. Still not good, but we got to know it's more than hundreds of votes. We got to know who is it? Is it only Democrats or is it both?
The only thing that the elections in San Luis are free and fair.
Yeah. They're fixed. They've been fixed. They already know, seriously, who is going to win the next election before it even happens.
How do you think this affects the community, especially the Hispanic community, because it seems like they're preying on everyone.
They're an easy
Leading question.
because most of
It's a horrible interview.
Yeah.
How do we know she's not being paid?
Yeah, we don't know that. No identity. She didn't name any names. Yeah. No, she didn't say who she was, right? Who the person who directed it. So yeah.
Say who she's really working for.
No, exactly. So
This
is almost a nothing
burger.
burger. Yeah, this is almost a nothing burger.
Mostly as, oh, she's trying to help us because we're older, because she's having someone come up and in my house, because I don't drive. Most of it, I would say honestly, 90% of the elderly still live in San Luis, don't drive.
I think she knows it.
Yeah, this is just speculation on what I'm getting actually from this, and I don't mean to be unkind, is the leading questions are because
She's not.
she's not very smart, and they probably said, okay, we're going to ask you questions and give us as much detail, and then they ask the questions and she answers yes or no. So then they switch to leading question.
Interview and all leading questions.
Yeah.
No identification of people. We don't know who she worked for. Has she
Yeah.
said they're all Democratic votes? She said they looked at
No.
the votes.
No.
But what if they're Republican? Did they throw them
Didn't
out?
say. Is it getting smoky in here?
What's that?
Is it getting smoky in here?
I don't think so.
Okay.
What a brave woman to do this.
This doesn't help this case.
No, I don't think it does really. If you had a few of these, it would mean something, but just one with no ID, no names. She just said something about being in the trash can, like pieces. I really doubt that even the most militant of left wing people are saying, we're going to chop you up into pieces if you don't help us cheat.
And you know what? D'Souza has done enough interviews with enough varied people to know how bad this interview is.
Yeah.
He
should know. He should know better not to. But they said
this is not helping his case.
No, it hurts his case, I think.
We know that the MULES got their traffic of ballots from these activist organizations.
Name
Where
them.
do the activist organizations get the ballots from? Hans von Spakovsky is a former member of the Federal Election Commission, a senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation, and co-author of the book Our Broken Elections.
I will say election fraud is bipartisan, but most of the cases I see are unfortunately the Democratic Party.
Just what a mule kind of fessing up about participating in this trafficking operation. Is this kind of a mule operation something familiar to you?
But unfortunately, this is so common in some parts of America, particularly the Hispanic community, that they have a special name there. There they call them politiqueros. And these are individuals who are paid by campaigns or political parties to go into neighborhoods and collect absentee ballots.
So this is such a well-known practice that the Republicans have totally left themselves out of. They're not doing any of it. It's all the Democrats.
Yeah.
Who are we kidding here?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Dishonesty is on both sides here. I don't deny that the Democrats can cheat and lie. But don't tell me that if this process is so well known that the Republicans have not bought into it themselves.
See, I didn't believe before this election that there could be 1 million harvested ballots, but we're seeing now that there can be 1 million harvested ballots. But who is it?
But they have to be very specific.
Yeah.
They have to know where the close places are. They have to know. Yeah, they have to know. Like, there's all sorts of parts of the U.S. they don't have to pay any attention to because they know what's going on.
Yeah. Like New York and California, the electoral votes are more than Democrat. Yeah, and Texas. Yeah, in Texas and, the Rust Belt and Tornado Alley is all going Republican, right? So, but to me, knowing how much fraud is going on is scary. It's not good.
Pressure and coerce voters
who observe election fraud have commented that absentee ballot fraud or mail ballot fraud is the easiest and the most of election fraud. Why is that?
Well, because they're the only kind of ballot that is voted outside the supervision of election officials and outside the observation of poll watchers. Transparency, is very important in the election process, and there's no one there at a voter's home to observe what's happening. Also, remember, when you're in a polling place, you fill out your ballot and you then deposit it directly into the ballot box. That obviously is not what happens with absentee ballot.
There are some states, I believe about half of the states, that allow voter harvesting. And by voter harvesting, what we mean is that you are allowed to give your ballot to someone else and ask them to deliver it. Now, are there any states in which you're allowed to pay mules to deliver ballots to Dropboxes?
No, you're not supposed to be doing that. And allowing vote trafficking to begin with is a huge mistake because you're giving third-party strangers, candidates, campaign staffers, party actors, all people who have a stake in the outcome of the election. You're giving them the ability to handle something very valuable, a ballot.
Voter fraud is almost
Yeah, it's not necessarily those people. Like you're giving it to your uncle. Sorry. Yeah, you go now.
So these ballots that they're harvesting, they're not necessarily blank ballots. People have voted.
Yep.
And so they're harvesting them and taking them. Does that mean they harvest them and filter out the ones they don't want? Or because it sounds like they're harvesting blank ones and they're filling them out to the people of the party they want. When really most people would hand their ballot over already voted on. Like just say, oh no, just give me your ballot, I'll fill it out for you. How many people
Nobody
would fall for that?
Yeah, but I think there has to be some level of, and that's why I think what you said earlier before I started, so many more votes in this election, right? And so many more mail-in ballots in this election. What I think very well could have happened is mail-in ballots went out. They were filled in not necessarily by the people who they were supposed to be filled in by, and they were submitted as valid votes.
Incalculably rare in the United States.
Does it ever happen? Okay, occasionally it does happen, but it doesn't happen on a national scale.
I read these days constantly that election fraud, well, it could occur, but those cases are extremely rare. They're so episodic, they don't have the ability to tip an election. Is that true?
It happens often enough that elections get overturned. I mean, just go back 3 years to 2018 and a congressional race was overturned. I can cite to you another case in Mississippi. It was just overturned by a corporate of the front. Same thing in Florida. But look, that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Now, we've shown that you've got these mules who are picking up these ballots at various vote stash houses. Where do these organizations?
Yeah, that's reenactment for sure. They should put that on the screen.
Yeah.
Same with that.
Everything from filling out absentee ballot request forms for voters and having
Okay, I have proof that
going to the voters and obtaining the ballots from
that what we saw earlier, we weren't sure if it was like really good video coverage or reenactment. It is reenactment. I got proof right here.
It is real.
No, it's reenactment. I got proof.
Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna go back a little bit.
Someone else and ask them to deliver it. Now, are there any states in which you're allowed to pay?
Okay, I went back a little bit too far, but we'll see it.
You're not supposed to be doing that. And allowing vote trafficking to begin with is a huge mistake because you're giving third-party strangers, candidates, campaign staffers, party actors, all people who have a stake in the outcome of the election. You're giving them the ability to handle something very valuable.
Voter fraud is almost incalculably rare in the United States.
Does it ever happen? Okay, occasionally it does happen, but it doesn't happen on a national scale.
It doesn't affect the outcome.
It would affect the outcome.
I read these days constantly that election fraud, cases are extremely rare. They're so episodic, they don't have the ability to tip an election. Is that true?
Fraud happens often enough that elections get overturned. I mean, just go back 3 years to 2018, and a congressional race was overturned. I can cite to you another case in Mississippi that was just overturned by a court because of fraud. Same thing in Florida. But that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, not
It's
yet.
shown that you've got these mules who are picking up these ballots at various vote stash houses. How could these organizations get ballots?
Want to put case here? Let me count the ways.
That didn't answer the question.
No, it didn't. I
That
thought,
was a very poor answer.
yeah. So what I thought I saw was the inside of the car, that car. I thought it was exactly the inside, same car as the other footage that we weren't sure if it was reenactment.
Yeah.
I saw something I thought was pretty unique, but unique to both vehicles, and it wasn't. So it's still up in the air, at least technically. Oh shit. That was definitely a reenactment though.
That's
I mean, Wisconsin 2020. Visual is mentally capable, they ought to be able to vote. Well, if the only place they can vote is registered address, the home shell, that's fine. But the problem there is that it's very easy, I think, for them to be intimidated and coerced in Chicago. The largest election fraud case the U.S. Justice Department ever prosecuted. They were paying homeless individuals to cast ballots the way they wanted to cast. What made you want to do this? What made you want to get involved?
Well, on the election stuff, it's be something good to do. And then plus, I'm in the election and this Christmas for my son. So that's why, main reason I did that.
Who do these fraudsters pick on? They pick on the most vulnerable in our society. They go into poor neighborhoods. They pick on the elderly. They pick on people whom English is not their first language. When we're trying to stop election fraud, we're actually trying to protect.
So, stop a second.
Yeah.
Do they think that they mailed their ballot to that tent? Like, where did they get that? I mean, these people don't have addresses. How do they get ballots?
I don't know. They gotta be able to pick it up somewhere.
And
Like
you think
a
they're
homeless
responsible
guy.
to do that?
A homeless guy probably goes to like a homeless shelter and can probably get a ballot, right?
They just don't care.
Oh yeah, I agree. Most of them don't care, and people who are taking advantage of the homeless and people who don't speak English. Again, that's gross, disgusting behavior. How do we know it's only Democrats? We don't know that.
We now know where the ballots could have come from, but to pull off a heist like this on a national scale would take deep pockets. I wanted to find out where the money might have come from. Who could have funded the heist? I met with Scott Walter, an old colleague of mine at the American Enterprise Institute, who is now head of the Capital Research Center. This is an organization that has produced multiple reports on the funding of elections. People think of three rivers of money really that empty into the gulf of elections. The hard dollars to write a check to candidates, the second tier, soft money or dark money, and then there's a third river that people tend to neglect, but Capital Research Center studies intently, and that is the 501c3 nonprofit money, the kind of charity that you get to take a tax deduction for. That river is enormous. In the 2018 cycle, about $21 billion. Now, what do the IRS regulations say about the involvement of these nonprofits? By law, these nonprofit charities are forbidden to directly intervene in elections in any way or to help a particular party or candidate. The IRS is emphatic that you cannot intend or even have the effect of helping one party or candidate over the other. Now, let's talk about some of the key elements of this particular network that we're focusing on. We have Dropboxes, and those Dropboxes are, most people would think, funded entirely by the states. In other words, the Dropboxes in Georgia, funded by the state of Georgia, that's not entirely the case, is it? In the 2020 election, there was unprecedented hundreds of millions of private dollars going into government interests. The $470 million or so were sent by Mark Zuckerberg and his wife.
We did our part to secure the integrity of the election.
There were a few other places that put in much smaller amounts. One entity that put in $25 million was, again, a nonprofit that's part of the Arizona Advisors, which as a total empire in 2020 took in $1.7 billion. Is there any evidence that this operation had a partisan thrust or a partisan character? As we all know, big money rarely comes without strings attached. One of the big ones is lots and lots of Dropboxes, also lots and lots of vote by mail. To get your nice big checks, you had to do things like have Dropboxes, encourage vote by mail, have ads in foreign languages, all kinds of things that little by little are nudging the turnout for one particular political party. In addition to the $470 or so million that went into the Zuckerberg operation, we also had in 2020 a $120 million project, very secretive, called the Voter Registration Project. The $120 million, it came from Soros's foundation, it came from Mises' foundation, it came from Warren Buffett's foundation, it came from unions like the SEIU. The Voter Registration Project has as its goal increasing in the 8 target states over 2 million voters who are overwhelmingly expected to vote for the Democratic Party.
And so the states that we're talking about here are Arizona,
Yes.
Georgia,
Yes.
North Carolina,
Yes.
any others?
Nevada, New Mexico.
Here we've got an operation of illegal vote trafficking. You've got thousands of mules that have been paid to do this. What you're saying is there is more than enough money available to fund any such operation. In fact,
Sorry, Josh, what are they funding?
this would be only one top.
Right now, according to what this guy's saying, more Dropboxes, and then programs to get like multi-language programs, like to get people to vote, right? Because a lot of stuff is in English,
Yeah,
but
legitimate.
yeah, it's legitimate for sure.
Yeah.
But it does skew one way technically. Does that make it wrong?
Maybe the
Doesn't make it
Republicans are
wrong.
pushing that
Exactly.
so that the vote is,
Well-
is more diverse as well.
Well, what's interesting is that lately, like Hispanics and African Americans, they're still overwhelmingly voting Democrat. It's not the landslide it used to be.
So, but the point still is Republicans
Yes.
have a vested interest in not making the vote easy for people, because the people that have trouble getting to it are the very people that vote Democrat. So they're not going to
Yeah,
help
so
those people. They should be.
Yeah.
They should be
So
helping everybody.
and the Democrats are reaching out to people who, aren't going to vote as much unless you reach out to
Make
them.
it easier.
Yeah. It would be nice if it happened on a nonpartisan way,
So that's
but
why-
that doesn't happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, so that's why the Georgia legislature has limited Dropboxes now, because they actually don't want those people voting, because they vote against them. So they have a vested interest in not having the boxes out there. The Democrats have a vested interest in having them out there.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is you want as many people to vote
Yeah.
as possible.
As you can, as long as it's legal, right?
Yeah, illegal, sure.
As long as it's legal. So I think, like getting the vote out or getting the multi-language stuff, I don't think that leads to fraud. The tons and tons of drop boxes that I think can lead to
That
fraud.
would make it easier.
But-
They're close together. So
but-
people are cheap.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean cheating, right?
No, and it does necessarily mean that you're making it easier for people who find it difficult to vote because
Yeah.
it's farther away, they don't
Yeah.
get time off work, all those
Yeah,
kind of things.
their bus routes are limited. Yeah, because they don't have a vehicle. They got to go within walking distance.
Part of a much larger effort to control the election. We are talking $500 million in nonprofit charitable funds flowing into efforts to register and get out the vote for them. Most of the left
No.
mainstream media
Get out and vote.
reported on the bucks going through. They said
Right, but it is for.
Yep.
It ends up being for Democrats.
But
also, let's not pretend that Republican donors don't invest in, charities that do things to assist Republican candidates.
but anything that has more people voting
Is good.
is good. And,
For sure.
And if you vote for anything that makes it harder for people to vote,
That's not good.
yeah. And so, bottom
As
line,
long as it's a legal vote.
get parties, but it happens to break down
Right.
that more drop boxes helps the Democrats, less helps the Republicans.
Yep.
So the principle stands all by itself. How it affects the vote
Right. Should
is up to the people who vote.
Yes.
And they should all be in favor of more people voting and making it easier for people
Right.
to vote.
Agreed. Do you think Democrats that are doing this care about more people voting?
No, I don't. No.
Yeah.
Totally don't believe that.
Okay, good.
But I think
Good.
the basic principle that should be on
Yes,
there is
I agree with
more
that.
people to
I
vote.
agree with that. So I don't believe these donations are altruistic.
No.
Okay, good.
But
Yeah.
But
Now,
because if it would work the other way, those people wouldn't be giving them money.
of course, right? If it went to, turns out more Republicans voted, they wouldn't do it.
But the principle, the unbiased,
Yep.
the unpartisan.
But I
view
wouldn't say that anything that gets more people voting is good because it has to be legal voting. Because Democrats seem to want no ID to vote. Now I think that is silly.
And I mean,
That would
definitely they want people that don't have citizenship to vote.
Yeah.
That's
So
in their state.
yeah.
I'm not sure I can go along with that.
No. So
I
just
have to
more.
go on pretty soon,
Okay.
so-
Well, we got 5 minutes left or 8 minutes left. No more breaks.
It's all going to go for masks and plexiglass and all. And every study that's ever been done of some of the grants to the big cities found a few percent maybe going to help people that way.
I'll speed it up.
Amounts of money going into ginning up the vote by mail operation and Dropbox operation and those sorts of things to benefit one political party.
How confident should we be that this will be a fair election? They're sending millions of dollars all over the country. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen.
Trump predicted that the Democrats are going to cheat, that they're going to use the pretext of COVID, they're going to make the
Trump
rules
would
in
cheat?
favor.
I think he'd cheat.
Their efforts on the campaign, while Democrats focus their efforts
Well,
on
life
the
is lying.
process of actually running the election. The two sides don't approach elections in the same way. The Democrats, they understand that the rules by which elections are conducted is just critical. We must now face the chilling reality. The Democrats conceived the race. They funded it. They organized it. Then,
You're not there.
Nope, not yet.
2020 presidential election. We cannot regulate this. We cannot simply move on. I'd like to have your honest assessment on what you've seen, what you've heard, and what we can reasonably draw from it.
What do we have in We have data geolocated, we have footage of people harvesting ballots. Do we know who those ballots were for? We can't know who they were for. However, you have to inject common sense. Are we saying that in the centers of Democrat-held districts, we are seeing hundreds and hundreds of visits to Dropboxes with closed on ballots? It beggars belief.
That one was pretty convincing. I don't think we'll ever know the full story. And what makes this crime so compelling and unique is that once a ballot is in the system, it's really hard to reverse engineer it. But when you have the cell phone geolocation data and then the actual footage of them doing, taking pictures, the ballots, taking gloves off, visiting multiple times. And it seems pretty clear to me, and it explains the sudden spike in Biden support that we saw late at night, kind of instant that the controlled U.S. Senate went majority with Chuck Schumer's majority leader, probably because of what we just saw.
I want them to answer the meeting. If they say then be honest and say, okay,
There's two ways they try to minimizing and slander. So they'll try to slander the next person, or they'll jump harding him or whatever. Therefore, he's trying to get back at Trump, try to reinforce a big lie. I could already see the headline in the Washington Post. Trump finds an ally comes out with questionable movie.
I predict right now they'll say, what is a conservative doing? Tracking private citizens. What is the national considered doing? The that'll be possible.
Intimidation. Right. So what do we intimidate? No person is safe. Communities of color are being tracked. People like in black neighborhoods are now going to have to fear for their life that their cell phone feed is impaired. And this is Jim Crow 2.0.
I disagree that this is not going to be This is a smoking gun. This is O.J. Simpson leaving the scene of the crime. I don't care how funny it is. You can't dismiss all of this. How do you explain somebody going to a whole bunch of different Dropboxes with a whole bunch of different ballots on the same night at 3:57 a.m. in the morning? How do you explain that? That alone. I'm sorry. I think a whole bunch of people in this country are going to go, oh my God.
I think that if every American saw that, I think we would move the needle. However, their ability to keep their side ignorant is total.
It's going to be impossible for people to live on this side. Well, this movie is an over to window moment, right? So documentaries can do this every once in a while. Michael Moore did it. He was the over to window and different topics 20 years ago. Now Moore did it with climate change. It'll happen at Ernest Hemingway, and gradually next month. Because it's not just how many people are going to watch this show, it's who's going to watch it. It's going to be lawmakers. It's going to be people that are from the bureau. There's someone somewhere with a Congress that has power to say, what can be dismissed? And can't be dismissed.
They have ruined election day in the United States. That's provable. And that's enough for me to fight the left with every fiber in my body.
So I agree with the first half of this sentence. This is now just crap at the end that we don't need to watch. But he said they have ruined election day in America. And I agree with that 100%. Whoever is doing this has ruined election day in America. There are way too many fraudulent votes. But, and then he said, I am now going to fight the left with everything I have. We don't know for sure it's the left.
These guys didn't ask who were the nonprofits that are getting the votes.
Yeah, well, they might have asked.
So let's go talk to them. Like, let's see if they'll talk to us.
Right.
Yeah, like I feel like they, I mean, obviously they had a slant going into it. I had a slant watching it.
We all have a slant, right?
Right? Yeah,
we all have a slant, right? But what I think you're right. What I think they should have done is name the organizations. Now, I think I caught something kind of at the end there. It is democratic strongholds. These organizations are located where democratic organizations are going to be, inner cities and things like that. But that's still not enough to say for sure it's that it's all democratic organizations.
And they have to go to areas
not even
where
close.
Republicans squeak something out on the Democrats. Like they have to show that the Republicans aren't doing this. Like the one guy said, this is a well-known strategy. Well, like I said before, if it's a well-known strategy, you can be sure the Republicans haven't missed a beat either. So we need to, rather than just check out Democrats, we need to go to those areas that could be questionable from the other standpoint and do the geolocations and the camera stuff there too, because this is one-sided. And it can't be any other way because everybody in that room was conservative. And although I share a lot of conservative values, I'm a little disappointed with this.
So also near the beginning, they showed that of the 200 or something or so mules in Georgia, about 67 of them were at Antifa BLM protests. I'll just call them protests, not call them riots right now, but so that shows like 1/3 are left leaning, but that, again, that's not. What if 2/3 are Republican? We still don't know.
This is incomplete until they look at the other side.
I'm gonna try and get. I want to try and get messages to Dinesh and see if he'll answer them, because really that's the most important thing. Who were these organizations,
Yeah,
right?
if you really believe
Was
in
it
what
Planned
you're doing,
was it Planned Parenthood,
Yeah.
or was it Right to Life?
like,
Right.
But you need to, yeah. They're not confident enough in what they're doing to actually name organizations, because they'll get sued. So
Yeah.
they're not confident enough
Yeah.
to go to court over their information.
Yeah, because
So
they
they're
were
not
talking about
confident enough, period.
because they were talking about fear of getting sued at a couple times. The lady did, and I think the group of conservatives did, right? Like, so you have to be careful what you say, right?
But they're
So
not willing to take if they don't believe their data enough to say, if we're taken to court, we get to put this data
Yeah.
forward, and this is why we did it.
because all you have to say is people went there and then to Dropboxes. You don't have to say they picked up ballots. They can say we believe they did, but you can't get sued for saying that.
No,
So yeah, you're right. Where is what is the issue that's holding them back from naming them? All right, Murray.
yeah.
It's 10 after 5. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Let's talk more about this in the coming days.
Sure, that was good.
Yeah,
That was
let's get.
That was really, really interesting.
Yeah, that data info.
Yeah.
That's compelling. That we know there's cheating. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. Yep. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.